Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Homeowners insurance increasing or deductible too high? Call, click, or come in. Save a Dave. Dave Miette Insurance Agency.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, on this beautiful day here in New Orleans, live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios. And we got a great hour for you, covering the New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, the Tulane Green Wave. If we have a chance, we'll get into college realignment. And we've got Richie Mills of Channel 26 Sports on his maiden voyage on our program. Had him on our radio show last week. They do a fantastic job over Channel 26, and I'm happy to have him. And Richie, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for your time today. Certainly appreciate it.
Oh, I love being on these shows. Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Well, first of all, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Okay, again, native New Orleanian, right?
I was born and raised in Chalmette up until 2005 Hurricane Katrina. I was 11 years old when that hit, and my family and I evacuated to Macomb, Mississippi, where we had family there. Went to high school at Park Lane Academy in Macomb, Mississippi. About 2008, moved back down to Ponchatoula. We stayed there, still there. I live there now with my wife, and like I told you the other day, my 7-pound guard dog, and I went to college at Southeastern. So I'm Louisiana through and through. Every TV job I've had has been in the state, Lafayette, Shreveport. So, I mean, this is a place where, you know, I've really dug in deep, and I don't see myself going anywhere else.
That's great. It's great when you can do stuff in your home state, better when you can do something in your hometown. It's amazing. And it's really good that this town seems to gravitate more and more toward homegrown talent.
Right.
We see it almost in every station, where again, more people, more of the news directors are trying to be able to get individuals that grew up here, understand, because we're a unique city, there's no doubt about it.
There's a complexity to the state and this culture and the fandom just with sports alone that if you're not from here, you're not going to truly understand. And if you come in here from way up north, you're going to play catch up the majority of the time you're here. I mean, I try to explain the Catholic League, for example, to people, and they're just like, the what?
Yes, right.
So like I said, there's a complexity to the sports in the city, but I mean, if you've been here, you understand it through and through.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about Channel 26, all the great programming you guys have. I've told you before, you know, I'm taping your guys' shows, I'm watching them, so tell the folks a little bit about it.
So we just brought our sportscast back maybe a couple of years ago. So we're on weekdays, Monday through Friday at 6 and 10. You can find us on the WGNO Sports Zone, which is a favorite show of mine to be a part of. That's on NOLA 38, the CW, 10:30 Friday nights. And then the 31st year of Friday Night Football starts August 19th. This will be my 4th year doing it. I don't know how Ed Daniels has done it for 31 years because my hair's turning gray just going into 4.
Well, 31 years of that, and then of course the longest running sports radio show in the city with the Three Tailgaters on the station I'm at on 106.1 FM with Ed Daniels and Ken Trahan. And of course, Look, we've talked about it before. You guys, between CrescentCitySports.com, which you guys do as a partnership with WGNO, you do a great job in covering, high school athletics. Really, really, from the preps to the pros, you guys cover it all.
People don't realize it too. We even did the math. We were trying to do previews the pandemic year of just about every program, every high school program in the city. I counted at least 94.
Wow.
So I mean, it's an unlimited content pool, but it's one we love dipping into each and every time because there's great stories to be told across the city, and it's even better when you see these kids on our show make it to the LSUs, the Tulanes, UNO, Southeastern, and to the professional ranks.
I'm also not afraid to lead a show with prep.
Right.
Which again we have not seen since maybe I was a kid in New Orleans, okay? Where you led with prep. And you're not afraid, you guys are not afraid to do that, and you do it very, very well. So thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to the next hour.
Absolutely.
All right, let's start off with the Saints. First of all, Jameis Winston puts out a video this week without the brace throwing. A lot of people concerned about the brace, the limp. Look, I'm not worried about if he's got to have a brace on. I believe he will have a brace on and play with it this year because he has to protect that leg. But just your thoughts on his process of coming back from the knee injury and hopefully again to be ready for training camp.
Every time we hear from him, I think to myself, he's a lot more intelligent of a quarterback than people may think. I mean, and he's not going to post a social media video of him working out with no brace without someone or multiple people giving the okay. But I love the progress. I love the optimism. I love his passion. And it's like I said on your radio show the other day, I love the loyalty that he's shown. And I think the team, by rewarding that loyalty, is going to pay off down the long run because we focus on numbers so much, statistics all the time, but I think what gets removed from the conversation is the human element of things, and I think what he's shown is he's loyal to the cause. He's been loyal through the offseason, through the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, and even now when he was kind of contemplating a contract with the city. He only took one other visit that I know of. So the fact that he's here, he's showing here, and every time he works out, he's wearing New Orleans Saints gear. Sure. So, I mean, I love that about him, and I think that, he's the perfect character fit for what this quarterback position for the New Orleans Saints needs. And I love everything he's doing. You can't help but root for the guy. And the production was there, given one maybe the worst receiving rooms in the NFL last year, which not entirely their fault. I mean, you were asking first, second year undrafted free agents to break out and have Pro Bowl seasons. So I think given the circumstances surrounding his season, I just thought he played phenomenal.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I thought again, I would like to have seen him for a full season. I think there was a trust factor there with the wide receivers on what he was willing to be able to the routes he was willing to be able to throw. I think that'll be a change this year. I think we'll see a more aggressive Jameis Winston this year. And also, again, I think the quarterback room is stronger now with Andy Dalton backing him up.
You can honestly say that right now, if the season started, would Jameis be fully 100% healthy to go? Which the answer to that would be no. So you have Andy Dalton, a seasoned veteran who's been a starter in Cincinnati, started in Chicago, started in Dallas. He's been the guy that understands the situation, and he can help bridge you to that point of 110% health. So I think the quarterback room, and Ian Book, we really haven't seen what he's capable of because the Dolphins game, you have to throw that out the door with a makeshift offensive line and then the 9 offensive or the sacks. I mean, I just think that the potential's there for this to be a good quarterback room, whether or not he can go.
Right, and then of course, again, having another set of eyes on the sidelines, a guy that's been through it in an Andy Dalton. So when Jameis is coming to the sidelines, giving him what he is seeing, that can only help in getting ready during the week, putting the game plan together. That can only help in having a veteran like that with you.
Right. I thought the Taysom Hill quarterback battle with him and Jameis last year, I even said it on the show, I thought it was an unnecessary distraction because the whole time you feel you're competing and you don't securely feel like it's your job. So I think with Dalton there, I'm the guy, and if I am going to go down or if I need someone to calm me down, you have a seasoned vet right there on the sideline that's pretty much seen it all in every possible quarterback situation. So it's all optimism really for me.
One of the keys I think to this season, I'd love to get your take on it, is the play of the offensive line, especially with Jameis coming off the injury. Again, we've seen it in the past. You know, again, doesn't like guys around his legs. He's not really a running quarterback, but turned into one last year because of really the lack of talent at the wide receiver position. This is really a big year for this offensive line to once again prove they're one of the top offensive lines in the league. Cesar Ruiz, obviously McCoy is one of the best centers. You're talking about Andres Pete coming off an injury. You got the battle at the left tackle position and Ramczyk coming off an injury. Those guys have to be able to protect him in order for him to be an efficient quarterback this year, in my opinion. I'd love to get yours.
Absolutely, because, you know, what last year did, it truly showed just how vital that group is in terms of everything this offense wants to accomplish, like every offensive line group is with any team in the NFL. But I think if you were there on the field, on that offensive line when Jameis Winston went down, something has to click in your mind as to that can never happen again.
Yes.
And I think that's what happened with Ruiz, Ramczyk, McCoy, Pete. And I think just with them being healthy, motivated in that sense, and then you add guys like Penning, you had Hurst last year who's shown versatility, can play multiple positions. The one thing that I want to see from that group is that want to, that care, because you know in their mind, that's where it all starts.
Yes.
It starts and stops with them, everything they want to do.
True.
So truly, I think that they take pride in that, and they're going to this season.
Yeah, I would agree. And you know, to your point, we saw that with Drew Brees. Drew Brees was untouchable. If Drew Brees got hit, you saw the offensive line. Again, they took it personally. Again, that has to carry over with a Jameis Winston. They have to protect him with kid gloves. If they are able to protect the passer and open up running lanes, this will be a dynamic offense.
Right, and that's why I'm excited about the development of a guy like Penning. You see the talent there, the raw talent is there, but when you talk to these guys, that's what I love about the conversations, is that they give you the insight into why they're doing what they're doing, why they might not be on the day one depth chart right now starting. It's because they're still learning the intricacies of the game in a sense. For a guy like Penning, he's talking about footwork. For a guy like James Hurst, his versatility is going to allow him to be a day one starter right now. But I think that caring factor, you mix that with the talent, I think this group has the chance really to be one of the best, like they've shown.
Yes, and again, it really has to be for them to reach the expectation, which a lot of people have for them this season. Running back position. Look, I asked you this question last week on the show, and I'll ask it again for the TV audience. In my opinion, it reminds me so much of last year on how they approached the wide receiver position. You had a veteran in Traquan Smith, and then, of course, you added a lot of undrafted free agents, hoping those guys could step up with a new quarterback. This year, you've got Kamara facing, again, maybe a 6 to 8 game suspension. You've got an aging Mark Ingram, who, again, look, if he's healthy, hopefully, again, he's able to carry the load when Kamara's out. But then the rest of them are undrafted free agents, unproven. Look, I know that they like the kid Smith from Baylor, hope that he's going to be able to emerge. But they're rolling the dice once again now on a position that is critical on not having, again, or bringing in another veteran that, again, can come in and either play alongside Kamara when he's healthy or stand in for him when he's down. I'd love to get your take.
Well, I think that's what I love about sports society is if your team's not making a move right now, you you get impatient from a fan sense.
And I am impatient no matter what.
Right. I just think it's so early in the process that, and like I said on your radio show, if you pull up the free agent running back list right now, Devontae Freeman and Latavius Murray, two names that are still on it right now, guys that were in this system in camp last year. I think they're just taking their time, doing their due diligence, researching guys like Abram Smith, researching Tony Jones Jr., who really had a great camp. That was the reason why they parted ways, or at least felt good about letting Latavius Murray walk. I think right now, patience is what people need in regards to the running back room. We don't know what the process with Alvin Kamara is going to look like until it plays out. So I think all you can really do right now is speculate. But Abram Smith's a great back. You saw that in the Sugar Bowl when they played here in the Caesars Superdome. And on the field watching, you're like, this dude, the way he runs, the way he cuts, he's different in a sense. He's a professional back. So I think you evaluate him to a point where you feel you're comfortable with. If you need to bring in a free agent, you have two guys that are familiar with your system, ready to go right now for a team-friendly price.
So in your opinion, you think they're really kind of waiting to see what Smith's going to look like in pads before they make any kind of move one way or the other?
Absolutely. It's easy to be the Jim Short heroes out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, in my opinion, that's what they're waiting on because, again, it's so early and there's so much time between now and the preseason.
Talk about the difference in this wide receiver room now.
Whoa. Better. Light years. Just in terms of talent, name talent. light years better. Again, nothing wrong with what they accomplished last year. I think when you threw the undrafted free agents out there and you told Marquez Callaway, go out there and be a number one. He did that to the best of his ability.
Sure.
You might not have realized it, but his numbers were great last year. And I think you add guys like Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas comes back, Chris Olave to the mix. I mean, there's different skill sets throughout here, and that's why I always say this offense will go as far as Jameis Winston can carry them. The weapons are there. The pieces are there. What are you going to do with it? They're going to put you in a position to be successful. They've shown that for every quarterback that they've had so far this year, and they all do different things, which will confuse any defense, keep any secondary on their toes, and make your quarterback super happy knowing that you have 3 options out there that can get you a touchdown at any point on the field.
I also like, again, the opportunity that if Thomas is not ready to go, you have a Jarvis Landry that could step in and run the routes that he normally would be running for this team.
And you have Callaway, who can fill in immediately, being the number 1 for this team last year. Deontay Hardy, he can be anywhere on the field, really. You can line him up in the backfield. But, I mean, the pieces are there. I think last year is going to turn out to be a blessing in disguise, not just for the receiver room, but for everyone, because people that wouldn't normally get reps because of those big names being there, they did. They got the reps there, and that's going to pay off when it's needed this year.
I am a Troutman fan. I mean, I just think that he is coming from a small school. He was thrown into the deep end. He has struggled at times, but as you get into year 3, you pretty much know the terminology. Your body should be, again, an NFL body by now. He has the ability to catch the ball. He was a pretty good blocker in college. You would hope that in year 3 you put it all together. Are you concerned about the tight end room at all?
I'm not. I think that was just a byproduct of the inexperience really throughout the entire offense last year. He's shown on the field he can be as talented as anyone, and I think just the added pressure of, you know, maybe people feeling like they needed to step up and be that guy might have played a toll. There's also the unfamiliarity with the quarterback position. You come in thinking you're going to play with Drew Brees, then you go through Jameis Winston, and then you have Trevor Siemian, Ian Book, guys like that you don't really, there's no consistent camaraderie with the quarterback position. So I think that, you know, he's just been a victim of, you know, the turnover that they've had so far. So I think maybe 1 year of just being in the system with a consistent quarterback, a consistent voice, and maybe a game plan more designed to get him the football might help a little bit, because you saw in the draft video, you don't just trade 4 picks for this guy if you don't think he can't play football. So I think the talent's there.
And look, this is the year where he's got to emerge. All right, Peyton and Brees are gone. What does this offense look like this year? Is it a more downfield offense with Jameis Winston? Will he be willing to make the throws over the middle, which maybe he was hesitant to make last year? How much of will they rely on the running game? You mentioned maybe using Hardy as a weapon out the backfield, which I agree they may do. How does this offense look in your opinion?
I think it's more of a mid-range kind of place-hitting offense in terms of baseball. But, I mean, the only deep threat you're really going to have right now is Chris Olave, who can get up and down a football field like that. So I think a lot more of a mid-range passing game you'll see in effect here. But I still think everything goes through the running back position, because you have one of the top 5 backs in the game. As of right now, you have to move forward with the assumption that he's going to be available week 1 until the NFL says otherwise. All
right. I want to get to defense, but I want to ask you about contracts. You mentioned Deontay Hardy. It's interesting, as we talked about this the last few weeks on the program. 1 year, $3.2 million. He's the second highest paid wide receiver on the team, in front of Jarvis Landry, who's making $3 million. How do they approach this year? He's looking for a long-term deal. How do you do this with a guy like Jarvis Landry coming in and signing a really hometown discount cap-friendly deal?
I love it that they've been able to maneuver the numbers how they have, but then you got to look at the bad contracts that you have on your books right now, which name comes to mind, Andres Pete. That's a contract right now that hasn't really panned out in favor of your organization. So if a guy like Jarvis Landry comes in, has a great year, you find out is a great fit for this organization moving forward, that's a contract you're going to have to look at like several others you have. Now, you can't tell me that anyone with those big contracts is going to think otherwise if it benefits the team, like, hey, maybe I can give away some money just for the sake of the offense. But that's something they're going to have to really take a deep dive into, because I love the team-friendly deals. Those are great. You made them at opportune times in the offseason, but at some point that question is going to come up in contract negotiations.
Now, they could play Hardy under the tender this year, okay, because I believe he signed the tender, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct or not?
I think so.
I think he has.
I think so.
Okay, but from that standpoint, they can kind of let the season play out and figure out again how they're going to pay him. On the flip side, I want to go to the defense next. C.J. Gardner Johnson is the last year of his deal, $2.7 million, unrestricted free agent. There are some that say, hey, man, you got to get him signed and get him a long-term deal now. He's the heart and soul of the defense. There are some that are saying he's a nickelback. They're a dime a dozen. Where do you stand?
I think you should let him prove just that. I mean, give him the opportunity to do that, because he's shown he brings that dog mentality that you've heard so much this offseason that I think provides waves for this defense. But I think in terms of a contract year, let him prove that he can play the position that you want to sign him to play that long deal to. So give him the chance to do it. He is a great player. I mean, and he brings something to that defense that he's the guy on the team that you're like, well, you know, every team has one of those, and he's that for the Saints.
This defense looks stout on paper, all three levels. Talk about the defensive line first, and just your overall thoughts on what has to happen for them to be dominant this year.
They have to stay healthy. Have to stay healthy. That includes Marcus Davenport. That includes Peyton Turner, because those are big-bodied individuals. When you place them up against other people, they move mountains. Yes. They move human beings for a living. And so when you add that to a guy like Cam Jordan, who really came on late last year, they might have one of the best front sevens in the NFL, and I truly believe that. But they have to be healthy, all of them. Demario Davis is great. Pete Werner's a guy that I loved watching last year, just because it felt like early in the ball game when you needed a guy to set a tone, he was making a tackle for loss to start a game. He was laying the big hit early. And I just think that staying healthy, progressing a year, just the natural progression of things, will really do so much for this defense. From the secondary standpoint, stay healthy. Marshawn Lattimore, he had a little bit of a scare last year. Tyrann Mathieu, getting up there in age, the talent is there. Stay on the field, stay healthy. He also missed some time last year for Kansas City. Came back, had 2 interceptions in a game and a pick 6. So, I mean, when these guys are healthy and they're on the field and they're available, it's a whole different ball game out there.
May start the season with Marcus May on suspension because of DUI. How are they going to utilize May and Tyrann Mathieu?
Oof, that's a tough one. I mean, those are two dudes that pretty much do the same things well. So, but I think that versatility in itself, I mean, you can have both of them on the field playing safety at one time. C.J. Gardner Johnson playing close to the line, which he does so well. Right. So I think it's a good problem to have, really, when you think about it, because these are Pro Bowl guys that you can really move around and scheme to your advantage.
What about the depth at linebacker position? Again, I've been one that has been touting Quan Alexander, bringing him back. Maybe not so much as a starter this year, but just to have him there for the quality depth. I still think if you're not going to go with Quan, you still need another linebacker to emerge there. Do you think they go outside of the organization and bring a Quan back or another linebacker, or do they stay with what they have here? Especially, again, with they've drafted a backer as well.
Caden Ellis really has been a name that always seems like it's in the headlines at some point in camp. I think you deserve to give him more of a look than he's been getting. If Pete Werner doesn't have as good a year last year that he did, I think that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable with parting ways with a guy like Quan Alexander. You know what you're getting from Demario Davis. You're getting a bona fide leader and a dude, an absolute dude on that defense. I think they're comfortable with what they have in-house, and of course they drafted for the position, brought in some free agents, so I think they're giving them some look. But I think they're comfortable moving forward with what they have now, knowing what's on the line in front of them and the plays that they've proven they can make last year.
It's hard. This is a tough question for you because we haven't seen him in pads yet. But it looks like a pretty good draft on paper. Olave, Penning, Taylor, DeMarco Jackson, also, again, Jordan Jackson. Of those guys, how many do you think will contribute this year, whether it is on special teams or, again, in some role within the offense or defense?
Honestly, if you're asking me this, I think they're all going to have to contribute. Okay. I mean, whether it be on special teams, like you mentioned, starting roles. I mean, because that's really what this organization has successfully shown, is that these undrafted free agents, the rookies that they bring them into play. And if you show them you're willing to do what it takes to play, you're going to play.
Right.
And they've contributed. Guys like Shai Tuttle is a name that I always bring up, because you didn't know what you were going to get from these guys. And I think the culture you have set in, the play style that they play, you're not going to bring a guy in if you don't think he can contribute right away.
Continuity has been the theme all season long, since Sean Payton stepped down from the job. What type of head coach do you think Dennis Allen will be? Pete Carmichael now has the reins all to himself in terms of the offense. What will that look like? And then what do the defensive coordinators look like, in your opinion, in terms of this defense? I understand Allen will be calling the defense on game day. Those guys will have a lot of input in what's happening as well.
Right, because when you think about time being divvied up in a sense, Dennis Allen is now focused more on the whole picture. While you still see him at camp and at practice working with the defense specifically, he can't dedicate all of his time to that. So you keep the same guys that have been in the system the past few years. Chris Richard's a great coaching talent. I used to be a Cowboys fan, but we're not going to talk about that. But I was super high on
my
it.
director might want to talk about that, but yeah.
But no, I mean, he's a great coaching talent, and I think you feel comfortable with doing that, with letting them kind of have more of the reins, providing more input. I think Dennis Allen's going to be a better head coach this go-around because of the talent alone. That whole Raiders scenario is something you can't really even think of. But I mean, just from being here, the team knows him, the coaches know him, the guys love him, they speak very highly of him. I see that being a successful tenure here for him. From Pete Carmichael's perspective, again, a guy that's been with the Sean Payton offensive system for years now, kind of the guy behind closed doors that's been pulling the strings in a sense. He's still here. So, I mean, there's not going to be much of an overall viewpoint, I guess, from that perspective. But I think Dennis Allen's going to do great, and I think that was the great hire.
I'm going to be interested to see it. Carmichael has been in the shadow of Payton his whole career. And again, supposedly, again, they've worked in unison on this offense along with Drew Brees, developing that offense. How creative will he be? Is he going to be willing to take the chances that Payton took? There were times when he took over that maybe you felt like maybe he was a little handcuffed at times. Payton taking over the play calling. It's his baby now. And then I wonder why the hesitation in the offseason in taking the job initially. That also, again, felt a little strange to me.
Well, when you look at the pieces that were available around the time, really, of his contract negotiations, you didn't know what was going to be here from jump. You didn't know you were going to have maybe one of the more talented receiver rooms on paper. You didn't know what was going to happen with your running back. You didn't know what the quarterback position looked like. So I think the hesitancy there was based off the pieces he didn't know he was or was not going to have. In my opinion, I don't think you work under someone for that long without picking up every little nuance about their play calling ability. So in my opinion, I think you see the same amount of creativity with his own little spin on it. Okay. And if we haven't seen more of that in the past few years, then we don't really know because no one has said such things. Right. But I just don't think you hang around someone long enough and not to start act like them in a sense.
Right. I do find it interesting, again, that everything we've heard is going to be collaboration. Be collaboration, again, in putting the game plan together on offense, on defense. So, again, this is not just Sean Payton or Dennis Allen. This is a collaboration of, again, all coaches coming together to game plan week to week. It'll be interesting to see how this kind of plays out.
Yeah, and I think it's great. It builds a new level of trust, a new level of communication. And this is, I know everyone's been there for a while, but this is a year of firsts, even for the coaching staff. So I think that collaboration needs to happen.
Before we break, the Breakers, they go to the Final Four in the USFL. There's still no word on whether they're going to, again, go back to the original, to the cities. I want to say the cities of origin, but the cities that their namesake. There are some that are talking about maybe doing a pod type deal. Do you think that they'll be back this season? They'll play this season. If they do, where they'll play? And do you think there is a market for it in New Orleans if the Pelicans are in a playoff run, which again is a really good possibility when you start talking spring football? If LSU is again making a run to Omaha, then again, where is the fan base there? Look, it's worked on TV. It's worked in Birmingham. I watched some games, and I wasn't in tune to it like I would for maybe a Saints or an LSU game, but I still watch, and because again, it's our job, right? But to the average fan out there, are they going to be enticed to go see a Breaker game?
The ratings tell me that the interest was there. I saw that a list that was posted the other day that of all the USFL teams, the second most watched team per household was the New Orleans Breakers. Why? Because it's New Orleans football. Right. I think you do give them a chance. You owe it to yourself to give this team a chance to be successful here in the city. I understand the success going on at the Smoothie King Center is one thing, but when you really boil the city down to its core, this is kind of a football city at the end of the day. Where they'll play, I know you watched the show because you wouldn't ask me this question, but I said Tad Gormley Stadium.
Right.
Why? Because it's a big enough venue to hold a professional football crowd, but at the end of the day, that place needs a facelift. I love that place because I say all the time, you get a Coliseum-like feel. Like it truly feels like two teams are about to come out the tunnels and do battle. That would be a great place for a semi but yet professional football team. I think it'll be successful in the sense that moving forward when they're drafting, when they're adding roster additions, localize it.
Yeah.
Add guys like Nichols, add guys from Southeastern, add guys from Tulane. These local stars that make a name for himself here in the city of New Orleans might not get recognized on the professional level in the NFL. Bring them and let them play for the Breakers. And I think that in itself, the name power of these local stars will generate more interest towards the team.
I always thought those leagues, and I say spring leagues, leagues other than the NFL, should have territorial drafts. Okay, because you want to be able to showcase local talent within your team, and that's going to help hit the box office as well. So I agree with you. You know, a territorial draft when again you got a first shot at LSU players, Tulane players, players within your state, or in this case maybe LSU, maybe you're talking about Louisiana, Mississippi. Obviously with Birmingham out, they're going to have Alabama. But it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, and it'd be interesting to see about Ted Gormley because it does need an infusion of cash. And that may be something that maybe Fox, maybe the league would be willing to put up. And maybe, again, I'm not saying the state can, but maybe the state can ante up a little bit to upgrade the facility because no matter what, even just for high school, it desperately needs a facelift.
Right. When ESPN came in last fall and they covered the Edna Carr, John Curtis opener, I thought to myself the whole time the press box windows had, water on. I mean, it just didn't look like a proper venue for ESPN to cover something. I mean, the game in itself was okay, but I mean, just the venue in itself, you kind of felt a little bit embarrassed because it's like this isn't what it looks like around here.
No, I agree. That's why I've been talking about Zephyr Field. Which again, what they're looking like they're going to do, which they're going to make it a multi-purpose stadium. It needs to be there for high school football. Again, it was talked about the new Ninth Ward Stadium that Arnie Filko is spearheading. That is going to be on the Carver campus, which is needed. We need more venues for high school sports. When it comes to lacrosse, soccer, football, and hopefully again, even if some facelifts to these facilities will help in terms of again having more places for high school to play. Look, you know it. You're in those stadiums every week.
You owe it to the kids, too, because you can only see so many teams call Pan American Stadium their home stadium. You're going to wear out the facility in itself. The turf's not going to be quality turf that it needs to be for these athletes. And it just adds a variety of places for these teams to call home, in a sense, when you're looking for a home field advantage. So, I mean,
agree. No doubt. Richie Mills is with us, Channel 26 Sports. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll jump into the Pels. We'll also get into, again, the college game. If we have time, we'll talk about college realignment in terms of the conferences. All that coming up here on Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Stay tuned for a message from our underwriters.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
What a difference the years makes when it comes to the New Orleans Pelicans. And of course, when you talk about the Pelicans, again, you can't go any further than what's happened within the last 24 hours, which is the signing of the max rookie deal for Zion Williamson. Again, 5 years, fully guaranteed. It has escalators in it that can pay him up to $232 million. Next year, if he is an all-NBA player, the MVP of the league, or again the Defensive Player of the Year. His contract now goes through 2027, 2028. That's 5 years on top of the last year of his original deal, which is this year. So a total of 6 years under contract for the Pelicans. You've seen him now change his body. He has a personal chef. He is working out. You don't see the body fat that you saw previously with him. And then again, you're seeing the buy-in. And again, not just again with his actions, but his words, verbally again, constantly again saying the buy-in to New Orleans, from his family all the way down to Zion to his representation. How big is this for the New Orleans Pelicans?
It's big in the sense that the timing matches up. In the past with these contracts, when you've had these superstars, it felt more of a desperation attempt to keep them here. But I think the timing of everything matches up perfect, because you have that marquee superstar that you've seen come through this organization in the past. You have him here with a playoff contending team, with or without him. And then after the run that they just went on, the interest is there, again, from the city, from players. People want to play here now. You see all the trade discussions that New Orleans comes up in. That doesn't happen without that playoff run. The timing of the deal is great. Yeah, he signed it on his birthday. Kind of had everyone sweating the reports for a little bit, like myself. But no, I just think it all matches up perfect.
Much like Brandon Ingram, and they brought this up several times yesterday in the press conference, again, there's no fifth-year option, which means there's no team option where the team can get out, no player option where the player option can get out. It's 5 full years in terms of the extension. The fact that they brought up Brandon Ingram's name multiple times yesterday, David Griffin out of his way, almost tells me again that he is untouchable, which leads us to our next conversation, which is the Kevin Durant trade talk and the possibility of, again, first of all, as you mentioned, the Pelicans being on the short list here. Again, that shows you, again, their dramatic change in terms of the franchise. The question is, when you're looking at a guy that played 90 games over the last 2 years, he's 35 years old. Yes, he's one of the greatest players in the history of the game. But are you willing to break up the young core you have now to take a chance on that sounds crazy, taking a chance on, but to bring in a bona fide superstar who has, again, been more of a mercenary, looking for a ring everywhere he's gone since he left Oklahoma City?
No, it's not worth it. I truly believe the Pelicans organization should steer clear of any Kevin Durant trade talks, just because of, like you said, his age. We know what he's accomplished. We know what he can bring to a ball club. We've seen him hoist the trophy at the end of seasons. We've seen him in MVP conversations each and every year. He's one of the most unicorn elite sharpshooters that I think I've ever seen play the game of basketball. I think based off of what this team has in-house right now, any trade conversation is not worth it. Leave it alone. It's flattering in a sense because, okay, New Orleans can attract consideration from a marquee superstar like this, but based off of what you have in-house right now, the talents, the skill sets, the depth, there's no need to mortgage your future over a guy that might be here for 2 years, play half of the schedule that you have, and you don't really know how he's going to feel at the end of each and every year, because when you look at really how he's departed these organizations, hasn't really seemed like it's gone the best way. So I want people that want to be here, and it's like I told you, it's hard to gauge how happy these superstars are when they're here, but when you're watching the Pelicans playoff run, they're all smiling, they're all happy, they're all bought in. Yes. I want that, and I know that I have that now, and there's no need to trade that away for something that you don't know what you're going to get.
Right. I would agree, especially, again, looks like any deal would have to include Brandon Ingram, which I would be against. You would give up, again, that treasure chest of draft picks which you've acquired, which gives you sustainability long term, not just in, again, the draft and bringing in young players, but the ability to be able to maneuver on the open market, adding, picks to players to be able to get better. Again, you're giving up all the Bucks picks, all the picks from the Lakers, the pick swaps, and your own. Okay, so it is a very costly move. But then some people say, dude's a top 3 player in the world. You don't want to have the top 3 player in the world here? Look, I get it. But there's just something about this. And look, like I said it yesterday on the radio show. Look, the one thing about us, everything we say, it can be, you could go back to it and run the tape, right? Can't run from what you say. And maybe, again, in the long run, I will be wrong. But I just think at this moment in time, I would like to see them go with what they have, grow this organization, because if they're contending for a championship, the mercenaries will come.
Right.
There will be so many other all-star type players that are going to want to jump on the bandwagon to get a ring. That's going to happen in time. Right now, it's about building sustainable winning, and to me, you got to hold on to what you have.
Right. If I'm this team exploring any option in the free agency market or a trade opportunity, you need a point guard. You don't really have a clear-cut point guard on this team, and the ones that you do have, they're either young, or they're hurt, or they just signed a $232 million contract, which we don't know if he's going to be playing point guard.
Right.
But I mean, there are other needs, and this is just not one of them. It's flattering at the end of the day because it's all happening so fast. You've never seen someone talk about New Orleans as a possible destination that they want to play. But
for the first time, really, isn't it?
So we're all shook, and we're just kind of like, okay, this is Kevin Durant. Like, I can see how you're getting lost in the star name here, but let it go. Please let it go.
This is Kevin Durant 5 years ago. I'm probably jumping all over it. But when I look at 90 games over 2 years, I'm looking at he's a guy that needs to have the rest during the season, everything else. And I'm looking at a young team right now that's still coming together. And Brandon Ingram, who is, look, a lot of people compare him to Kevin Durant. We'll see if he'll ever be a Kevin Durant. But there's an upward trajectory on Brandon Ingram right now at 24 years old.
To play 55 games last year, but still play efficiently like he did, that's a plus. I mean, when you see him in the playoffs, he was a different animal, and one that you get the same results from a Kevin Durant in a sense. I mean, he was averaging at what point? Almost 30 points a game, I believe. I mean, he was a dude on the court, and that's what you needed. And the complementary pieces around him knew that. You saw the camaraderie at the end of the game between him and C.J. McCollum. You're going to get that if you bring someone in off the streets immediately? I don't think so.
Right. Again, it's tough to say, but it'd be a hard pass on this one because I think they are building something. Now, that goes to this rookie class. Incredible rookie class last year, which really set this team on the trajectory they're on right now. Jayden Daniels, E.J. Liddell, Carlo Makovic, all will be part of the Summer League team that starts on Saturday. I'll be interested to see again how these guys play, but looks like 2 of the 3 are going to be counted on this season. E.J. Liddell, they got to find a spot for him now because again, they have the roster set. They're going to have to make some maneuvers there, which I believe they will. But what are your thoughts on, again, this particular draft class?
In terms of Summer League, I remember watching Trey Murphy get drafted, a 3-and-D guy that really nobody knew much about because Virginia Tech wasn't must-see basketball here in the city of New Orleans. But when he opened up the Summer League, he poured out 26 points. He played 4 games. He averaged 16 points. So in my opinion, I'm like, yeah, you want to see that from your rookie when you draft him. So in terms of Summer League, yeah, you want to see Jayden Daniels and E.J. Liddell, Carlo Makovic. You want to see them play well, but at the same time, you don't have to do much come the regular season. Like you have to, what I want to see you do, I want to see you go out there and prove that you can play within your role, be successful in other roles, but ultimately know that defense has to be your primary focus. If you can get a bucket, that's great, but that's not what you're going to be asked to do in the regular season. So I want to see them play well in the Summer League. I think that long term, you can really technically stash these guys in a sense. When I mentioned Trey Murphy, I remember receiving emails multiple times throughout the season. Trey Murphy designated to the G League squadron in Birmingham, which was a great move because you're not getting minutes with the Pelicans organization. We'll ship you down there. You get good playing time, put up great numbers, come in for a playoff run and contribute in the sense that he did. They don't win that play-in game against the Clippers without Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy doesn't have that kind of game if he's not getting reps in the G League.
100% agree.
So in a sense, you have 3 talented prospects. Carlo Makovic is a wild card. You don't know what you're getting from there.
But he sure looks like he's got some talent.
It all looks upside because he's explosive when he's driving to the cup. He can shoot the 3 ball really well. That's a wild card. Jayden Daniels can contribute to this team right away defensively. E.J. Liddell is going to pan out for you in a few years. There's no rush with these guys. Let their career develop in a sense where you have as much oversight as possible, but there's no rush.
I think you made a great point when you start talking about, again, the use of the G League in Birmingham, because we saw a different player when Trey Murphy came back. We saw the confidence where maybe he didn't have the confidence early. Look, if you could shoot, you can shoot. It comes down to, again, being able to get your shot off, how you're going to do it, spacing on the floor, etc. But he seemed to come back with more confidence after going down there and playing against guys that should be, that are pro players. And so again, that has been a real help. And of course, being so close to Birmingham, the maneuver back and forth with players is obviously something that's a plus. there is some bad news for the Pels in the offseason. For the first time, it would just been a really just an incredible offseason. Devontae Graham has been arrested in North Carolina for DUI. It'll be interesting again how that plays out. A lot of people have him on the hot seat, possibly being traded. Look, I said this to you last week on the radio show. He came here as a guy that was supposed to be a shooter, again, with Zion on the floor. That never materialized. I know he's been talked about in trades because, again, he's making between 11 and 14 million over the next few years. And maybe he's a guy that you dangle out there. Maybe not so much now because of DUI, because you usually get some type of suspension. But again, remember, the NBA is not like the NFL. But with that said, do you stand pat with him and give him allow him to, again, to be able to play with this team? Is he a guy you dangle in a deal to try? You mentioned point guard. They need a point guard. Did you get a veteran point guard? Some people believe they still need shooting. What are you doing with a guy like Devontae Graham? And let me throw Garrett Temple in there as well.
Garrett Temple, you kind of saw his minutes fade off towards the end of the year, but he's more of a veteran locker room presence for a young team that really at times might need to be wrangled in. CJ McCollum was a great addition in that aspect as well. But I think you give Devontae Graham that season that you promised him when he was signing a contract was, we want you to play with Zion. We want you to shoot from the perimeter. We want you. What I love about his game is he can make baskets in waves that can turn the tide of momentum in ball games. You saw that in the playoffs. He can come down, hit 3 pull-up threes in a row, and just like that, not only are you in the ball game, but momentum's on your side. So I think you owe it to him in a sense to let him play with Zion Williamson. Let him play with this offense that you pitched to him whenever you were signing him in free agency.
I think it's a great point. Now, it's funny because I thought Garrett Temple would be a guy that would be a candidate to move into the coaching staff. But I was told by a recent guest that he has a law degree and would like to be a lawyer when he finishes. Okay, he's not going to make the kind of money he's making right now as he jumps into law. Maybe down the line, but not right now. The question is, what do you do with him? First of all, he didn't play well on the floor, but what he did in terms of being a veteran and being a guy that was really a leader on the team, teaching these young players how to be pros. Again, I don't think you can measure that.
Right.
But with that said, they need a roster spot. What do you think they do? Is that a buyout candidacy? Do they try to trade him? What do you think the situation is going to be there?
I like the coaching staff kind of thing because, you're going to need that roster spot and that money down the road. I mean, before the Zion deal, minus $28 million against the cap. So you're going to need that money at some point. But when it kind of reminds me of Udonis Haslem for the Miami Heat.
Okay.
When you're brought into that organization as a player, you automatically know that's a vet. That's a guy that I need to look up to. Yeah, you're going to play with him sometimes in practice, but that's a guy that you more so look up to. Garrett Temple's that guy for this team right now based off of age and experience. You move him to the coaching staff, that's a seamless transition. You save yourself some money. You keep the person who's been in that locker room throughout this whole process, who probably, from a culture standpoint, you might have needed. So, I mean, I like that, but the spot you're going to need because this rotation's already, without him, 12 players deep, and it can be even deeper, one more player if he's not there.
Right, and again, you would rather not sign E.J. Liddell to a two-way contract. You'd like to have him on the roster. That spot has to be there. Almost reminds me a little bit of what they did with Fred McAfee with the Saints. McAfee again was a player, then eventually, was a liaison between the club and the public. Eventually, again, now is again a part of the coaching staff. But he's been here. Okay, he's a New Orleans Saint. He's been here. He's been somebody that rookies can lean on as a vet, and maybe that's something for Garrett Temple, who's homegrown, right out of Baton Rouge.
Absolutely, and you just took the words out of my mouth. I mean, who better to add to that staff than someone that's played basketball here now on the amateur and professional ranks that knows what's going on here.
Right, and of course his dad historic in terms of what he did in breaking the color barrier for LSU basketball as well, no doubt about it. All right, let's shift gears to LSU. Man, look, first of all, it's been pretty amazing, okay, when you talk about the transformation of the coaching staffs, bringing in a Kim Mulkey, bringing in a Brian Kelly, a Jay Johnson, a McMahon on the men's basketball side, and what those four coaches have been able to do in such a short time in, whether it's shoring up their teams or in a lot of cases having to rebuild their teams from scratch. It's been pretty amazing. But let's take football first. This past week has been just head spinning in terms of what Brian Kelly's been able to do in terms of verbal commitments for the 2023 class.
Yeah, I mean, it has you excited about LSU football in a sense again. After 2 down years, you brought in this breath of fresh air, and he's getting the in-state recruits. He's getting the big names out of state, but he's still trying to reprioritize recruiting Louisiana. He even did that in the short time that he had in the spring, which I thought was much needed and kind of gotten away from in recent years. Nothing against Coach O. You won a national title.
Right.
You did that because of you and your recruiting style, but it just didn't fit the mold of modern-day college football anymore. They needed homegrown talent. They needed great out-of-state talent, which they got with 2 great pass rushers. But I love that Brian Kelly, he's a proven winner.
Right.
He knows what he's doing. Trust what he's doing. Let him do his thing. And he's proven that he's doing that right now.
Jay Johnson did the same thing with baseball. I mean, you look at it again, and the thing that really caught my eye was doing it on his own, before he started adding to this coaching staff. But again, bringing in the pitching coach from
Wes Johnson from the Minnesota
Twins, right? I mean, and then all the transfers that he was able to get in the transfer portal to shore up his team.
And that's what I love, is that people are like, whoa, we surely got a lot of transfers.
Right.
And he did this last year.
Yep.
Where do you think Tyler McManus came from? Where do you think, Braden Joe Bear came from? Where do you think the majority of the pitching staff came from? The transfer portal. So he's just doing the same thing. It's just more highlighted now because they were bounced in a regional to Southern Miss. But I mean, he's addressing what he needed to. What he said he was going to do was pitching. And then he's also adding in some of the premier position players across the country. Brian Kelly is doing the same thing. 2 offensive linemen, which I thought was desperately needed, especially for an LSU run game last year. They only averaged 3.3 yards per carry, which is unheard of when you think of LSU football and the ground and pound approach that you've traditionally seen from this program. He brought in defensive backs, which last year, like I said, the team runs out of the tunnel. You have so many players walking out with their knees on scooters, which was your entire secondary, pretty much. So he brought in Joe Fouché, who's a local guy, Greg Brooks, another local guy from Arkansas, guys that have proven they can play in the SEC. You bring in a guy from Gardner, from UL, who's played in Louisiana, who's proven that he can play football on the collegiate level. They're addressing what they need to through the transfer portal. It's no surprise. This is what they said from jump they were going to do.
And then, of course, Coach McMahon, what he's been able to do after all the defections where it looks like, okay, LSU's going to be at the bottom of the SEC, they're going to be a contender, based on what we've seen so far in terms of his recruiting.
You don't have success at Murray State. You don't make the tournament all those years without being able to recruit the top talents in the country. Not only is he doing that now for the LSU brand, but those top talents that were playing for him at Murray State are now in Baton Rouge. So this team is going to give a lot of teams fits in the SEC, if not compete for one of the top 3 spots. I love what he's done. It's no surprise. I mean, all these coaches that you mentioned before this conversation started, they're proven winners.
Yes.
And they're just doing what they've always done for years, just for the LSU brand now.
Talk a bit about Tulane. Let's talk Tulane football right now. Willie Fritz, again, he went in the transfer portal to augment his team. This is a big year for him, again, when you start talking about Willie Fritz. Not that he's on a hot seat, he's going to get fired, but again, there's a lot of pride within Willie Fritz. He's been a winner everywhere he's been. And again, it was expected to take the next step this past year, and it didn't happen. Talk about the Greenies.
Of course, the circumstances with the hurricane. That also throws off your everyday routine for a college student, having to move them out of state and then back in state, and oh, by the way, we're asking you to perform against maybe one of the more underrated conferences in college football. I think they're going to have a better year this year based off the fact that they seem happy. They seem motivated. I mean, obviously, that season happened. That's never going to go away. That will forever be in their mind, but they're more motivated now. Their offensive coordinator, they're excited about that. Nothing against Chip Long. I thought Chip Long is one of the better offensive coordinators in the country, but from what you kind of are starting to gauge is that there was a complexity to his playbook that really threw off different groups as they were progressing, and they couldn't never string drives together because of it, whether it be deficiencies with the offensive line, the running backs, the receivers. They could never piece it together. Jim Swoboda has simplified everything, but it's still complex in a sense that everyone gets it. It's going to be effective on the football field. Michael Pratt's being talked about one of the more underrated quarterbacks in this class, which rightfully so. He threw 21 touchdowns last year, had an even better freshman year, and he really is one of the more premier underrated talents at that position. What really got me last year was the Chip Long discussion with the playbook. you saw they could never string these drives together at critical points in the game. Right. The Oklahoma game is one I can think of in particular. They let in that second quarter, Oklahoma scored 23 points as opposed to their none. Right. So you're playing uphill each and every game. They averaged 29 minutes in time of possession each and every game, giving their opponents the ball more, which is problematic in a sense because you're always playing from behind. The strength of this team is running the football. They had to get away from that because they were playing behind in so many big games, and you never really saw their top talents in action as much. Tyjae Spears was in and out of the lineup last year. Cam Carroll, who was on a preseason watch list for averaging 6.5 yards a carry. You didn't see much of him last year. You bring in a guy like Ashad Clayton now, a guy from Warren Easton who you saw he was a 4-star talent for a reason. You bring him to that fold. I think they're even better this year than they were last year. The receivers are back, the quarterback's back, the line's back, the defense is back, who I think caught a little too much slack last year, but offense couldn't string drives. Defense was on the field more than offense. It's just problematic. So I think this will be a better year based off the fact that everyone's back. They seem happy. They seem like rejuvenated in a sense. And I think they'll be even more competitive than they were last year. You have to.
Ron Hunter looks like he's put a pretty good basketball team together this year, too.
Oh, man. Jalen Cook coming out of the NBA draft, which you owe it to yourself to test the waters in a sense, but I just think him coming back was big news because you saw, they might not have won 20 games last year, but the talent's there. Yeah. They gave everyone fits last year. They even beat Memphis. So, I mean, it's just Houston's the hump that you need to get over for at least one more year.
And then Jay Ullman, again, in a situation where, again, in the transfer portal, lost some players, was able to get some. It'll be interesting to see, again, how he rebounds with his team going forward with the program.
Well, they're familiar with him. That's his recruit. This is his guys that he brought into campus. So by keeping that familiar face, that familiar voice around. I remember going to talk to Grant Siegel one day before practice, and in the middle of the interview, he made it a point to say Jay Ullman's name. Grant Siegel was one of the top freshmen in the AAC this past year. He might not be pitching for Tulane next year, but you get the sense of the premier talent on that roster love this coach. And by bringing this coach back, you're going to retain a lot of the premier talents on that roster, which you desperately need in a conference, like I said, that is very underrated in a lot of sports, football, baseball, basketball being some of them.
Got 30 seconds. Who's the LSU quarterback?
Jayden Daniels.
Jayden Daniels?
Jayden Daniels.
Okay. Give me a reason why?
He's proven, and he's proven that he can stay healthy.
Right. Be interesting to see. I'm leaning toward Nussmeier, but we'll see how it plays out. We'll see how it plays out. When you look at LSU, are they a team that is a bowl team this year?
Absolutely.
Okay. Tulane, are they a bowl team this year?
I believe they're a plus 500 win.
Okay. Team. Which gives them an opportunity to go to the bowl.
Right.
You know, if you're plus 500. I like the New American. Now we'll see what happens. Too bad we didn't get the realignment, but I think they have a chance to be the kingpin of that particular conference, which I think will help them down the road in realignment. Again, especially with the defections we're seeing right now to the Big 12.
One more year.
There you go. Richie, thanks so much. And Richie Mills, Channel 26 Sports. One more time, tell us about the great shows that you guys have.
Sports Zone Friday nights, 10:30, NOLA 38, the CW. We're also on weeknights, Monday through Friday at WGNO News at 6 and 10.
Thanks for your time today.
Thank you,
Great
sir.
job. Another great reporter that we have here in the city, and of course going to be part of our radio show and will be back on our program here on TV as well. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. As always, we very much appreciate you guys joining us on the program. Remember, there are so many different ways to catch our program now, so many rebroadcasts. You can catch on the WLAE-TV YouTube page, ericasher.com, and of course rebroadcast here on WLAE-TV, also on Pelican Sports. There's a QR code that's on your screen right now. Just click it with your phone. It'll take you either to the WLAE-TV YouTube website or, again, my website, where you can catch the program at your leisure. Also, don't forget, catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM. That is weekdays 4 to 6. Again, you can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, the Anchor app is our podcasting app, but you can listen at the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app. Those are digital platforms for the program. I want to thank our underwriters who make this show possible. Please continue to support those underwriters. We thank those underwriters for their support. And as always, I want to thank the great folks here at WLAE-TV who, again, set up our program each and every week. Of course, it starts with Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Graffia, Tommy O'Connor, and of course, Director William Hill. I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Richie Mills, we'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. than, and say,